Hi everybody, welcome to Best of British Blackwell. This is our first video of 2020, so Happy New Year to all of my viewers. We're at the 1,000 subscribers mark now, which is unbelievable. So thank you very much and welcome to all the new subscribers. Today, and to kick off the new year, I'm going to be making something which I haven't made ever before, and certainly not as part of my channel. I'm going to be making some homemade pasta, and I'm going to be turning it into prawn and crab ravioli with a little hint of chili. So come over, let's have a look at what the ingredients are. We're going to start with the pasta, nice and easy to make. Come over and let's get going. Okay, so first things first, we're going to make our own pasta. Now, you can buy some wonderful pastas in the supermarket, and they will work just as well for this recipe, but actually there's something quite nice about just making your own pasta, and it is really simple. I'm going to show you now. We can knock this up in about 10-15 minutes. But let's have a look at the ingredients. So what have we got? We've got some 00 flour. Very important to have 00 flour because it's a finer type of flour, so it's very kind of soft and perfect for pasta. I've got about 300 grams of that in here, and I've also got 3 eggs, and that's about it. We're going to dive straight into this. So just make sure you've got nice clean hands to start off with. I cleaned my hands before. So we start off with a slightly bigger bowl. Start off with a spoon. I transfer my flour into a slightly larger bowl. I create a little bit of a well in the flour, and then I pour my eggs straight into that. And all we do here, slowly but surely, is work the eggs into the flour. You don't have to worry about anything else at this stage. You don't have to worry about it being too wet. You don't have to worry about it being too dry. You just need to get this egg worked into this flour. Now what I'm going to do is now lose the spoon and get my hands in here and really start to squeeze this together. This is coming along perfectly. Look, you can already see it's forming the basis of a really nice dough. And what I'm trying to do is make sure that all of the flour and all of the egg is mixed together, and there's no way of doing this without creating a mess. And in fact, what I'm going to do now is move my chopping board out of the way. Move that to one side. Tip the contents of this bowl onto my side here, which I've planed earlier. So the bowl really is just to start the process. Now what we want to do is work this pasta into itself. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to pick up all of the flour and all of the pieces of the pasta. The dough is already starting to take on quite an elastic feel, which is perfect, because the pasta dough does need to be flexible. And we're getting to the stage here where we're just working it and working it and working it into a beautiful dough. And you can see that the dough itself has picked up most of the bits of flour and pasta that were kind of just lying around here, and it's working itself into it. Once you get it to about this stage, it's about kneading the dough, and you need to do this for about 10 minutes. It's kneading and stretching, and what you do is with the palm of your hand flatten this dough out and then roll it back on itself and do exactly the same again. Okay, now there we go. We've kneaded that until it's at the point where it's exactly the texture and consistency that we want it to be. What do we do with it now? We can't use it straight away. So what we do is get some cling film, dump it straight in the middle, completely cover it. Just be very careful with this, but you need to make sure this is completely covered. Now, we leave that for a minimum of 30 minutes. but I'm going to be leaving this overnight. Now what you can do with this is you can freeze it if you don't want to use it straight away, but it will keep in the fridge for at least a week like this, as long as it's well covered up. Okay, so we're going to move on to the stage of the recipe now where we're going to make the inside, the filling of our ravioli. And let me talk you through some of the ingredients that I've got here. I've got a small onion and about a quarter of a red pepper, just chopped up and diced really finely there. I've got some chopped sun-dried tomatoes. I've got some easy garlic. You can use normal garlic granules, not a problem at all. I've got some smoky chorizo chili jam. You can use any sort of sweet chili jam in here, or you can just put chilies in there if you like. We're not a massive fan of anything too spicy, so the smokiness and the sweetness of the chorizo chili jam complements this dish quite well. We've got some prawns, and we've got some crab meat. They're going to be the star of the show in this ravioli. What I've also got here is some shop-bought tomato and mascarpone sauce. You can whip this up yourself, but actually just buying it is a lot cheaper. And I've got some single cream. So first thing first, we're going to start to sweat these down. So I'm going to take the camera over to the hob and you'll see how we create this. So first things first, what we want to do is get our peppers and onions straight in here. And what we're going to do with this first is just sweat these down so they're nice and soft. Now that these are sizzling away quite nicely, it's time to add our garlic. As you can see, I've got about half a teaspoon there of lazy garlic. If you were using fresh garlic, you can just use one medium-sized clove. Give that a little bit of a stir, and we'll adjust the heat. Turn it down to about halfway. Then we're ready to go in with our next ingredient. Next ingredient in is our prawns. Honestly, you don't need to tell you how to cook prawns. You know that once they hit the pan, they'll go that lovely pink colour. We don't want to overcook them. And now we're going to add our crab meat. Beautiful bit of crab meat going in. Give everything a bit of a twist and a turn. Some beautiful smells coming out of this. Excuse me. Some beautiful smells coming out of this already. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of oregano in there. Just a tad. And then we're going to season. A couple more ingredients to go in there, but we're going to let these prawns take on a little bit more colour. Everything's starting to cook down really nicely, so at this stage we're going to throw in our sun-dried tomatoes. The reason we put those in kind of last is they don't really take much in the way of cooking, and then we're going to get a couple of spoonfuls of our chorizo chili jam. Beautiful. So as you can see at this stage, everything is still quite rough and ready. What we're going to do to soften this up a little bit is add a bit of our tomato and mascarpone sauce. Just a tad, just to keep everything a little bit more kind of fluid. Just a little squeeze, that's plenty. We're going to use the rest of this to make our accompanying sauce. So we give this a little bit of a turn now. We're going to leave it on the heat for just a little bit longer. There we go, that's what the inside of our ravioli is going to be made up of. A beautiful mixture of lovely tomatoes, sweet red peppers, some beautifully sweet onion. We've got some smokiness in there from the chorizo and chili jam and a little bit of heat, and then we've got that seafood of crab and prawn. Beautiful. What we're going to do is let this cool down, then we're going to put it into our blender. I'm going to blend it up into a paste, and that's going to go inside our ravioli. Okay, so our cooled crab, prawn and onion and tomato mixture is now in our blender, and what we're going to do is blend this down into a nice paste. Because the ingredients in here are a little bit wet, what you will need to do around about the halfway stage is just get the spoon in there, push everything down a little bit. We want to make sure we get this into a beautiful paste. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the pasta. I'm going to be using my very basic pasta maker here, which I've got rather precariously clamped down on the side of my worktop. I've already passed this pasta that I made earlier through the pasta maker once, just to make sure that the setup of the pasta maker was absolutely spot on. But I will pass it through again. I've got it on the widest possible setting, which is setting number 1. And all we do is get it into a nice square shape, feed our pasta through like this. Make sure it's well floured. You don't want it to stick. There we go. Just start to feed it through. Now, I've already put this through once. What I'm going to do with this now is fold it in half and then put it through one more time. You can see it's kind of got a bit of an odd shape because of the way it's gone through the pasta maker. That will happen sometimes, don't worry about that too much. Just start again, get the longest piece through, and then get another one going through there. Okay, so the pasta's been for a couple of times now. As you can see, I have adjusted my pasta maker a little bit to get it a little bit more sturdy. That's the main thing with this. I mean, it can get quite hard to pass this pasta through, but hopefully you can see now that this pasta's starting to stretch out quite nicely, and we're getting quite close to the point where we're nearly ready to fill these raviolis. But I'm going to pass it through a couple more times just to make sure we're happy with it. Okay, so I'm filming this next bit by hand so you can see what I've ended up with here in terms of the 2 sheets of pasta. That's why I cut them in half, because we're going to be layering these on top. I'm going to show you a close-up of how I make these, but actually, just to give you an idea of perspective, you know, this is quite a long sheet of pasta, 2 sheets of pasta, I should say. I'm going to get the camera back on the tripod and show you as best I can how I put these raviolis together. Okay, so you've seen the part where we've rolled the pasta out. What we're going to do now is, with nice clean hands, just get a little bit of flour on our hands so they're nice and dry. Put it on top of the pasta there. We're going to take our filling for these raviolis and roll them into balls. They don't have to be absolutely perfect, but look at the texture of the filling of the ravioli. It just rolls together really nicely. It's the perfect kind of texture. And you take a little filling. Now I've got a total of 4 pieces of this pasta. I've cut it in half, as you saw, and then I cut it in half again. The key with this is to make sure that you get a decent equal spacing in between each of these little pasta doughs, pasta fillings. Then what we do is we rinse our hands, make sure we keep everything as nice and clean as possible. Just remove all of the excess out of the way. Then I've got some egg wash here, and I'm going to pretty much paste this egg wash over all of this pasta. I did also put a little bit of flour on the work surface as well, so that the pasta doesn't stick. Egg wash all the way through, and then in the middle as well. And this will help our pasta sheets stick together. Take this to one side, and we take our pasta and we roll it over, and we look for the gaps in between the balls here. This will help force some of the air out. Air inside these is not great, so you want to force out as much air as you can. And then where we've got the clearly defined areas where the filling is. I've got a ravioli cutter here. What I'm going to do is, hopefully you can see that I'm placing, I'll do it here, I'm placing the ravioli cutter around this edge, and this edge, but I'm missing this back edge out because I don't need to seal that, you know, it's already sealed by the fold. So I'll give it a push, down as far as I can, and do this one, push it down as far as I can, and I just continue like that. Really simple. There you go. Perfect little ravioli pastas. Okay, so we're ready to cook our pasta. What I've got here is some boiling salted water. All I'm going to do is drop these in. These are really not going to take long at all. In fact, we'll know that these are done cooking when they rise to the top, when they start to float. Just drop them in, let them cook. Okay, so the little raviolis have been in now for a couple of minutes. What we're going to do is take them out one by one with a slotted spoon, just to make sure that all of that water runs away from them. And you know, the biggest indicator that you've cooked these properly is that they don't split when they're in the pan, and these haven't. You know, they've stayed completely sealed, and that is because when we made them, we pushed them together at the sides really nicely, made sure that there was no air left in them. What we're going to add to this, some beautiful tomato, mascarpone and cream sauce. And all this is the tomato mascarpone sauce that I showed you that I bought from the supermarket, with a small amount of cream added. Now we need some parmesan, decent sprinkle of parmesan. Really good crack of black pepper. The lovely sprinkle. Balsamic vinegar glaze. All that remains for us to do really is get a decent bit of garlic bread on there. Let's cut into one of these pastas. Hopefully you can see that. Look, beautiful bit of crab, prawn. Wow, absolutely superb. So good. Is the pasta a bit of a pain in the bum to make? Absolutely, but is it worth it? All day long. You've not really cooked at home properly unless you've tried to make your own pasta. Give it a go. Not as hard as you think. It takes a little bit of time, but the fact that you can put whatever you want inside that pasta makes this all the worthwhile. Please give it a go at home. Thanks for watching.